Paul Pierce with 3 on the shot clock. Pierce, step back, 3, got it!
Somebody give me a napkin so I can wipe my mouth and go get the baby because she's crying.
Green
again.
What do to you
nothing. 6 points. For my team, you know, with the extra boost of energy. And I mean, you see the way the bench reacted. You know, the crowd was wild. You know, that helps us out.
And now, welcome to the Celtics-Beat with Daniel Baker.
And welcome to the Celtics-Beat. My name is Daniel Baker, and I am alongside Stats Adam, our very own Stats Adam from CLNS-Radio, or Adam Lowenstein, all the way from St. Louis. How you doing this wonderful St. Patrick's Day afternoon, Adam?
It's fantastic to join you here, and just looking forward to talk about the Celts, who seem to be playing well against the dregs of the NBA.
Switching gears, just talking a little bit of NCAA basketball. Now we're switching back to the NBA with a longtime columnist from the New York Post, a great basketball mind, and someone that's an absolute must-follow on Twitter as well. I'll get that handle to you in just a moment. We have Peter Vecsey joining us all the way from Manhattan. Thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Vecsey. How are you doing on St. Patrick's Day?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. And if you want to follow him on Twitter, it's at Peter Vecsey1. That's at PeterVecsey1. Peter Vecsey. If you don't know him and you're a basketball fan, look it up because he's someone you should know. We were just talking a little bit of NCAA hoops with Mr. Bob Lick, but we'll switch gears back to the NBA. And on CLNS-Radio, we like to focus on the Celtics, so we'll start with some Celtics talk right now. One of the biggest storylines for the Celtics right now is how they've been playing without Rajon Rondo. Are you surprised with how well they've done? They're 16-6 since he went down with that ACL injury.
Well, before I answer you, I got to correct Bob.
Okay.
Lou Alcindor did not demand to be traded to L.A. He demanded to be traded to either the Lakers or the Knicks, and he didn't allow the Bucks went out and took bids from the Knicks, and that's really where he wanted to go. He wanted to go home, and they were offering an old Willis Reed and an old Frazier, stuff like that, and they said no, and that's why they decided to take the Lakers bid, because they were offering 4 young guys and Elmore Smith, and that's why that deal went down. And just to tie up your Miami stuff with Larinaga played at Archbishop Malloy, and one of the guys in the Alcindor trade was Brian Winters, who followed Larinaga at Malloy. So there you go.
All right, very good. And so get into with the Celtics. Were you shocked with how well they play without Rondo?
Well, I think everybody has to be shocked, except that they do have a few good ball players left on that team. You're talking about guys that have some huge professionalism in Garnett and Pierce, and some pride, that old Celtic pride taking over. They're not going to, let one guy go down, and then Sullinger went down also. But they've been through these wars before, and they realize that, you have to advance and be recognized. And Avery Bradley has done that. And we all saw what he could do last year. He and Rondo together, they make up an unbelievable defensive backcourt. But Avery is a point guard, and so he can run the team. But, when Rondo's out, the ball gets distributed by, different people. It's not just one guy like Steve Nash controlling the ball with the Suns. It's 3 or 4 guys who are moving the ball, and that's why Pierce he's always capable of picking up, 5 to 8 assists. And Garnett, the ball moving, the offense moving through him, that's always pretty effective. And so, yeah, of course we're shocked, but, they're still in the NBA. Last time I looked, the Celtics, and they've won before. And they won before. They had Rondo, and they're going to win after all these guys leave. So it's just an outfit that knows how to win.
And Peter, this is Lowenstein here. If they are doing so well without Rondo, is there a possibility that he gets traded? Should they trade him?
I mean, I wouldn't advocate that. I mean, he's your biggest young asset, your best young asset. I did a program with somebody else in this area, New England area, and telling them the same thing I'm telling you, is that very difficult to trade a guard for a big man, and that's what they need. So would you trade Rondo? I mean, would another team accept Rondo for a quality? I mean, a real quality big man? It doesn't happen very often in the NBA, and if it does happen, it's for a reason. They're worried about one of the other players, or the contract is so prohibitive, they're just trying to get rid of it. There have to be a lot of factors that weigh in on that. I wouldn't advocate trading him. I advocate building around him and Avery Bradley and Sullinger if he's able to, become more than Greg Oden. That he's healthy, and so they have some young pieces, and it might take him a year or 2 or 3. But, as the Bulls have proved, when Jordan and Pippen left, it takes a few years, and fans are loyal up there just as they are in Chicago, and they'll get it together again.
Well, there was one team that I think would be, dying for a point guard. I guess not anymore now that they brought in a guy that Kobe so eloquently named Gatsby. I think that's the best nickname in basketball. But I want to talk a little bit about the Lakers. And before the season began, call me crazy or not, I thought the Lakers, at least on paper, if fully healthy, that looked like a team that could have won 70 games.
Yeah, well, you weren't alone. There were a lot of people that felt that. But, it's, again, you got to look at the way, things are situated. And, Howard coming off back surgery and then trying to play injured and trying to fit him in with Nash, who now they changed coaches and the philosophy of the team changes, so quickly. And D'Antoni under the gun and him not having confidence in Pau Gasol and Jameson, so it just fell apart so quickly. What I'm thinking of is like I look at Washington. And we all had them, that they should have fired Whitman about 27 times at the beginning of the year. And so now Wall comes back, and the team has really picked it up. And I don't know their record since Wall came back, but guaranteed it's way above 500. And so should they have fired Mike Brown? Yeah, pretty fast.
It seemed awfully fast. I know the Wizards are.
In retrospect, it's really fast because so Nash came in and they hired D'Antoni because he was the guy who would coach Nash, and so they were going to play that system. And then Kobe decides, not D'Antoni, that no, I think I'm going to be handling the ball most of the time, and I'll be the one distributing. So Nash plays off the ball. So now they're not playing D'Antoni's system. So what did it all mean? It all meant that during the off season, they were down on Brown. They fired a couple of assistants. They made them go away. I think they both went to Russia, and kept very few people. And so Brown was under the gun to win immediately, if not sooner. He didn't do it, and they blew it up. And so what I'm saying is they're looking back, and I'm saying Brown could easily be still a coach, and they'd be doing just as well as they're doing now that everybody has gotten their role together and people are healthy.
Would you say then that
the
Lakers...
Not all of them.
Exactly. Without Pau Gasol, they still don't know what they've done with him yet. But Dwight Howard
also
definitely
Hill,
getting.
you know, Jordan Hill's been out too for so long, and then Clark was able to pick up where he left off. So it's amazing how injuries decide an awful lot of what, you know, quote unquote, you know, great coaches do.
And
so what's your question?
Oh, would you say that they have actually figured it out? Then, you know, Dwight Howard's getting healthier now, and, you know, that's helping. And then Kobe, I know the injuries are hurting him right now, but if this team, and then Gasol jumps in, have they figured it out, and will they be able to do something in the playoffs?
Well, you know, Gasol is hurt again, so he had a setback with his foot. So I don't know if he'll ever come back this year. And if he does, you know, how much will he be able to, you know, get him into the rotation without hurting the rotation. So that they have gotten it together because they played longer. You know, they finally have, you know, a system. It's not the D'Antoni system. It's Kobe's system. If I had a vote this year, he'd be my coach of the year. I'd vote for Kobe. And you know, if healthy, you know, Dwight is getting much healthier, but it's also because, you know, Nash is getting him the ball in the right spot. Dwight, you know, Kobe's looking for him, making sure he gets more touches, and he's not so caught up in getting touches. He's getting a lot of his stuff off the backboard, as they used to tell, you know, the big men when I was playing as a kid. You want the ball? Go get it. You know, go get it, buddy, and run the floor, and you get it that way. So I mean, it is coming together. But you know, they're a team that's, you know, not that deep. But they've got Kobe. When healthy, you know, he might be as good as LeBron.
And speaking of LeBron, thank you very much.
That was
Getting
a
me
joke.
right into.
That was a joke.
I know. I don't think anyone is. I don't think anyone's in the same stratosphere at the moment, and especially, I mean, during this win streak, you got to talk about that. They won today again over the Raptors, so now pushing it to 22 games in a row, tied second all time in wins. And that month of February, was that maybe the best month of basketball that you've maybe ever seen from a player? I mean, LeBron put up almost 30 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, 7.8 assists. I mean, those are just the numbers. He shot over 64% from the field and 80% from the line. At least in my recent memory, and I know I don't go way back, but this might be the best month I've ever seen. Right.
Well, you're so young, you know. So I've actually seen Oscar play, and I've seen Elgin play, and a guy named Wilt play. So, you know, I've seen these numbers before. I've even seen them from Fat Lever. But he's playing fantastic ball. The greatest thing about LeBron is that he's able to do he's been able to do everything within the flow of the game. He's not forcing the issue anywhere. And secondly, he's doing it on the defensive end, and that separates him from so many others, is because, you know, nobody would ever said Oscar is going to make all team all defense first, second, or third team. That wasn't going to happen. Same with Baylor and those guys. So LeBron, you know, separates himself just like Kobe did for so many years as a defensive player. Jordan did with Pippen, and so yeah. I mean, he's just playing great, and it's a privilege to be watching him the way it was a privilege to be watching the people I just named back in the day.
And with LeBron, just how well he has been playing. He's saying it's kind of in the flow of the game. He's been doing it on both ends of the court, which is definitely something I don't think he's necessarily done throughout his career, at least every night in and night out, that you could always count on. But now that he's doing it, I mean, are we reaching? We saw it last year in the playoffs. What he can do. Have we even reached his apex? Can he go even higher? Because I thought last season the playoffs was really as good as he could be, but maybe he has more.
Well, I mean, it's more within the team, and you know, it's a compliment of Wade and Bosh and you know, even Chris Anderson and Battier. They're all on the same wavelength defensively and offensively, and of course he can go higher because LeBron will be the first one, and every great player will tell you that. You know, you go home each summer, no matter, you know, win or lose a championship, and you learn something more. You know, whether it's a post-up game, or you work on your outside shooting, or you decide not to take as many outside shots. Whatever it is that's going to make you better. LeBron has figured it out. He gets better every year. I think you're wrong about his defense. I think his defense was always there, and wasn't noticed as much. When you're not winning as much as the Heat are, and it's overlooked an awful lot. And we all zero in on his weaknesses, and we're all guilty of that. And so now they're winning, and we're all saying the greatest. And he is one of the greatest. There's no question about it.
And, of course the greatest needs some help, and Dwayne Wade has now scored at least 20 points in 13 consecutive games, his longest streak since LeBron has come to town, and he has been a big reason for this streak. Would you say that, keeping him in the lineup and playing these guys to continue this streak is important to set the new record, or should they be resting guys down the stretch because they have that number one seed locked up?
Well, they don't have home court locked up in the finals. So, no, I mean, look, you don't want to be resting people, unless you're Duncan's age, and Popovich's going to rest him every once in a while now, as long, same as Ginobili. But these guys need to play. They need to be peaking. They don't need to be sitting. And you don't worry about getting hurt. I'm not saying overplay them, and I'm sure they're not playing for the record, but they're playing to win because of the home court. It is meaningful in the finals. Not in the East, it might not be. They probably could, lose 3 games on the road and at home and win 4 on the road. I mean, that's how good they are. But I don't think we'll see them have Moses Malone, give them a full, and then reach the finals, and then we got a game.
And speaking of the finals, looking at the Western Conference, which has been better for quite some time, at least in terms of depth. What teams there? Oklahoma City, we know what they can do. They're in the finals last year. San Antonio, I think that they're right there with OKC and Miami. Is there anyone else in the West that could challenge the Heat in the finals?
Well, I mean, can they get to the finals? That's what you're asking. So, I think any team that reaches the finals from the West can give the Heat a game, because that means they've gone through some much stiffer competition than the Heat is going to have to go through. And you're talking maybe 4 or 5 teams if you want to throw in the Lakers. Healthy, with or without Gasol, they're still going to be formidable. And maybe not again. Maybe it's all about matchups. It's all about being healthy. And it's all about peaking. So Oklahoma City, not a good matchup for the Lakers last year. Probably wouldn't be this year either. But, you said, they were in the finals last year, but they were in the finals with Harden. And Harden had a lot to do with them getting there, even though he didn't do much once they got there. He's just, they're going to miss him. I don't care what anybody says. They can talk about, who they got and what they're capable of doing, but they're not capable of doing what Harden's doing. And so they better reach the finals, otherwise it was a terrible deal.
And
right?
I mean, you have to think so, because if you make a trade and you go backwards, obviously that's not the point. The season
not only backwards, if they don't reach it this year, what makes them think they're going to do it the year after or the year after that? They just gave away, one of the top one of the top players in the league. How do they get that back? Before they were getting it,
not replacing him.
Let me just finish.
Okay.
Before they were getting it because they were finishing bad and terrible in the standings, and they were able to get top picks in Westbrook and Harden. Even though I wouldn't have picked either one of those guys, they kind of shocked me. But they made great picks, and now they're not going to be in that position. So if they don't reach that finals, the owner, the general manager, they made a terrible deal. I say they made it anyway.
So looking at, obviously, with the loss of James Harden, the production, it's really hard to replace. Not just that, I think, obviously, you look at the chemistry too, but I don't know, maybe they weren't exactly trying to replace his production as much as, and I really didn't agree with the trade because I think they could afford him, But looking at their best player, in Kevin Durant, is it something where he still has more levels to go? It could be something where he has just bad timing getting into the league right now in the middle of what LeBron is doing. But he could be the first player, I believe, to lead the NBA in scoring while shooting 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 90% from the line. That season right now is getting overshadowed, I think.
You know what? All you mentioned the statistics to me. They're meaningless unless they get into the finals. I mean, what does it mean? Nothing. Who cares if he's overlooked? You know, it's all it matters is, are they going to get in there? And you say, could they have afforded him? They absolutely could have afforded him this year, Harden. There was no luxury tax problem this year with Harden. The problem was after this year. So if they had invested the money, taken the shot with Harden, then decided during the summer, okay, do we want to trade Harden? Well, maybe we don't want to trade Harden. Maybe we want to trade Westbrook. Maybe we want to amnesty Perkins. You know, there were ways to do it, and you know, it just creeps me out that we're talking about billionaires being able to afford a luxury tax one way or the other. They're billionaires.
I agree.
You know, I mean, for these guys to be crying about luxury taxes and stuff like that, where's George Steinbrenner? Oh, let me talk to him. I want him to say something about this. Do you want to win or don't you want to win? And, you know, I brought this up on another program. You know, for years I worked for Rupert Murdoch's New York Post, okay, owns the New York Post. The Post hasn't made money since I was, like, in high school. And that's going back a decade or two. And so why does Rupert Murdoch keep the Post? Because he loves having a voice in New York. He loves having the newspaper. And guess what? He makes it up in probably, you know, 600,000 other different ways in his business. You know? And he doesn't care about losing. He writes it off, just like these guys write off. So the luxury tax costs them? Yeah, they write it off. And then they write it off against owning a team. They write it off their other businesses. And it's a joke. I didn't want to hear about billionaires complaining about luxury tax. Go into another, get out of the league then.
Very well said. Everyone's playing on the same field with the same amount of the salary cap, and everyone's working within the same rules. I do want to talk to you about your hometown Knicks a little bit. Looking right now that they've fallen down to the 3 seed, and I guess the biggest thing in my mind when I look at this team, and obviously the two names, the two superstars between Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire, together they're about a 500 team when they're both playing. Can it work? Will it work in the playoffs? Is there any way it can possibly work with Stoudemire and Melo on the floor at the same time?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm sure you're following it. Stoudemire's not even around anymore. He's gone. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So what's he going to do? You know, why are we even talking about it?
I guess I just mean long term.
Well, long term, he might not. You know, this guy's had more trouble with his knees than anyone I know. That's why his knees are uninsurable. They don't have insurance against his knees. They go down. The Knicks are liable for $45 more million after this year. You know, look it up how many times when they signed him that I said this is a terrible move to bring in a guy for $100 million. His own team's doctors, the Suns, said they wouldn't give him more than 3 years. He's in his 3rd year now. You know, he's hardly played this year. He didn't play a lot of games last year. He's on the way out. So there's no reason to even talk about compatibility. They seem to be much more compatible together when they're both not playing. The team seems to be doing better. Not today, not on this road trip, but you know, it's a bad joke. But it's you know, there really is no reason to talk about the Knicks right now. Melo's got big knee problems. You know, Chandler's hurting. You know, whatever. His might not be serious, but Melo's appear to be serious. When you start draining knees of fluids, you have a problem, and you have a recurring problem. So I can't take them seriously anymore. They've got They've got 4 or 5 guys that should be in assisted living, and that they're an old team going nowhere in my book. That's why the Heat owns the East. The Pacers. I thought they had a decent shot till I saw them get dismantled twice this past week. And when Philly does it to you, you really got to start wondering. And so again, Eastern Conference belongs to Miami, and we'll all tune in on the West.
Well, would you say that the Celtics have any shot, or any team has any shot in the East? Then, if the Pacers obviously nothing for any team in the East. Then,
not to beat the Heat. No, I don't. I mean, unless they have a bad injury to one of those 3 guys. We saw when Bosch was out last year, Pacers had him down 2-1 and should have applied the pressure. Instead, they took the pressure off and just reverted to shooting 3-pointers. And we know what happens when the Heat pick up long 3-point misses. They convert them to layups or dunks. So. No, I don't see the Celtics having a chance. I don't see any team having a chance.
Looks like it's all Heat in the East and the West. A couple teams with a possibility. We're getting down to the playoffs, about 15, 17 games left. Been talking to Peter Vecsey, longtime columnist at the New York Post, also the winner of the Kurt Gowdy Award, the Media Award, Basketball Hall of Fame. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Vecsey. Really appreciate your time today.
Sure. Okay.
And looking forward, though, right now, if you had to pick a winner, looking into the playoffs, do you say it's the Heat winning again and LeBron getting his 2nd title?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
All right. You heard it here on CLNS-Radio. Again, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your St. Patrick's Day.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Thank you very much.
That was the always well-stated, opinionated Mr. Peter Vecsey. Some very good stuff. I like
awesome.
how upfront he was. I mean, I honestly didn't realize that Amari just went down again. But that's definitely a storyline. I think
you didn't know that?
I guess I haven't been checking all the box scores. I really only look at what Carmelo does because he's on my fantasy team. So I know a little bit annoyed with that. No, I know Amari's kind of been in and out, but it's also looking long term. I mean, I assume that Amari Stoudemire. I got a little bit mixed up. No, I'm not celebrating St. Patrick's Day yet, but Amari Stoudemire, I think he has to be the biggest lock for getting amnesty this offseason, don't you think?
That's a tough one. I'm not the best with this amnesty and the contract situations. I can't see it happening. It just doesn't seem like that's something that the Knicks would do because he's such a talent when he's on the floor. But, with Melo, it's still a possibility because they can't coexist.
It's just, and that's the biggest point. Who are you going to go with? I mean, it's a little sad in a way because Amari Stoudemire, that's the reason they got Carmelo Anthony to come to New York in the first place. I believe he was just that first big fish to fall. And then Carmelo said, okay, let me join you. And they both basically brought excitement and basketball back to Madison Square Garden. It still really hasn't amounted to much, especially in the playoffs. And if Carmelo Anthony can be healthy, it's just that one question: how far can they go in the playoffs? I think they have the 2nd highest ceiling in the Eastern Conference behind Miami because of Carmelo Anthony. And when he's healthy, at times he can be, even when LeBron's on the floor, he can be the best offensive player on the court at any given moment in any game. He's that good. He's that talented.
He's arguably one of the best scorers in the NBA over the last few decades, and it's impressive what he's done, and that's why the Knicks do have a shot if he's somewhat healthy. Then I'm surprised that Peter went into saying, Peter Vecsey said that the Knicks are done. I'm surprised. I feel like people are counting them out now, and it's counting them out too early because this team is very deep. The Celtics coming into the season were very deep. I was looking at the Knicks as well as a very deep team. Teams that can shoot, and this Knicks team can shoot the lights out. the first few weeks, the first few months of the season, they were shooting better than any team in basically NBA history from the three-point range.
And that's hard. The one thing, though, that's hard to replicate. That's hard to continue and count on in the postseason. You can't count on that you're going to be on fire from three-point range. Miami had a couple good games in the finals. You're not going to have Mike Miller hitting 7 threes every single time. That's just not something you can count on.
I know you can't count on it, but can you say that the Knicks then have a chance? I feel like writing them off is the wrong way of going about this. That's the reason why, because they have that chance. With the firepower.
Yes. Yeah, with the firepower. And then the other thing Vecsey brought up that you really can't ignore is the age. This is a very old team. There's some guys that they talk about being in old retirement homes or just maybe should be getting the Social Security checks at this point. I mean, that's the other thing. How much can you really count on when it really starts to grind out in the postseason? I mean, right now, looking at the team, Tyson Chandler, he's played all 62 games. Steven Novak, he's played 62.
Well, Tyson Chandler went down. He hasn't played recently.
He's played 62 games. I'm just reading off the most amount. And then J.R. Smith has the most games played with 63.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, he can light it up with the best of them. But if Carmelo Anthony's not healthy, there's just no way. I mean, right now, 27.5 a game, second in the NBA, but he's only played 52 games. It's his health, and that's the key. That's the key for any team going forward. One thing I did want to bring up, and I talked a little bit about them. I didn't get a chance to ask Vecsey. Kind of got back to the Eastern Conference, but I want to go back to the West a little bit. And I want to hear what you have to think about this team. I already talked about their point guard in the Denver Nuggets with Ty Lawson. But this is a team that would go against playoff wisdom, conventional playoff wisdom, and that, you kind of have to have you got to have a guy who can take over a game completely. This is just a crazy deep team. It's a team that can score a ton of points. Right now, they're putting up 105.8 a game, but just some big numbers. They're second in the league in rebounds per game of 45, third in assists at 24.4, and Lawson's only at 7 assists a game. So everyone's getting in the action. I mean, you got 6 guys averaging double figures, 9 guys on the team averaging at least 8.5 points a game, going down to Kufos, Andre Miller, JaVale McGee, Wilson Chandler, Corey Brewer, Kenneth Faried, Andre Iguodala, Danilo Gallinari, and Ty Lawson. That's a lot of players with a lot of talent. George Karl hasn't necessarily had much success in the playoffs. Is this the year? Because they're 30-3 at home. You can almost count on them winning their playoff games at home. All they would need to do theoretically is steal one on the road.
Well, let's take a step back. Actually, let's dig into the numbers now that I'm thinking about it. Let's see. Their free throw percentage, second worst in the league. That might lose a game at home. I'm worried that against an upper echelon team in the league, and they might have to face Memphis or the Clippers, they're not going to be able to get an easy team like Golden State or Houston or even the Lakers in the first round. They're going to have a tough team. And when you make those small mistakes, that's what's going to hurt them at home. And I'm just not sure they're going to be able to take all 3 games at home. And, they may even get to home court because they're right on the edge of that 4 seed. But I'm just not sure because of their lack of a star. When you have Andre Iguodala taking your biggest shots or Danilo Gallinari taking your biggest shots, you're not giving it to the best player in the NBA like you're giving it to a Kobe or a Melo or a LeBron. You're giving it to a guy that hasn't been in the stardom that much. And I just don't know
who else hasn't been in that role, though? They can pick on the worst defensive player on the court, though. That gives them some versatility. And another thing I want to say, I know you brought up a team like Memphis. They're definitely a very big team. New York, well, when they're healthy, they are. Clippers, they've got some size. Atlanta, I think, has some of maybe the best front court in the Eastern Conference. And Oklahoma City, we know how much size they have. The Denver Nuggets have won 11 games in a row right now. They're coming off a game on Friday against the Memphis Grizzlies, 87-80 victory. When's the last time you saw Denver do that?
Now that's impressive. Because,
and they also,
go ahead.
Go ahead. In this winning streak, games over the Knicks, that was the game before. Also a win against the Clippers, that was by 15. They beat the Hawks by 16 points. They beat Oklahoma City. And also, going back, they did beat the Lakers, too, obviously, with Dwight Howard. That's a lot of size to deal with, among others. Some of their players at other positions are also fairly tall. So they've beaten teams by getting up and down the court very quickly. They've beaten teams by slowing it down against Memphis, who is arguably the best defensive team in the NBA. So Denver has shown in this winning streak, and maybe I'm just blinded by that right now, but they've shown the versatility to beat teams in multiple styles this year, which hasn't always been the case. And it's having a guy like Andre Iguodala, who is quite possibly the best swingman defender in the NBA. I'm not going to say perimeter because I think you got to put Avery Bradley in that discussion, at least guarding point guards. But if you're telling me that I'm going to have Andre Iguodala guarding a Kobe Bryant at the end of the game, per se, or maybe he's on a Manu Ginobili, possibly, or shutting down someone on OKC, I'm okay with that.
See, it's an interesting situation because before I continue to see what I can conjure up to go against your point, I want to add one more about the Nuggets, and they're on pace to actually have the most points in the paint per game in NBA history, as far as since they started tracking the stat in 1996-1997 season. So they're averaging around just under 60 a game, which is astronomical.
A lot of that you have to look at being fast break opportunities, and that obviously when the playoffs roll around, they're not going to be able to get 60 points a game consistently in a playoff game. Maybe a couple times at home or just every so often, but you're not going to do that for 4 games in a series per se, theoretically.
Thank you for setting that up because it's exactly where I wanted to go with it. You took the words right out of my mouth. That was perfectly explained because I'm just worried that in that type of situation, this team is not going to be able to take advantage of these types of ways that they're able to, win games in the regular season. The reason why they're able to go on these streaks is because they're able to run teams out of the building. I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that to Memphis. It's unfortunate that they do so well in the regular season. It's a situation that I think of with the Chicago Bulls. There is no another level for this team. If anything, it's a step back because they're not able to go in that fast break as much. They're able to use that when they can, but I think against a team like Memphis, the Clippers, they might actually have a better chance against. I like Memphis over Denver, but I like Denver over the Clippers. I'm just not that big of a fan of the Clippers just because they have kind of the similar styles as Denver, and Denver, if anything, if they can just take Chris Paul out of it, which will be tough. If they can take Chris Paul out of it, they can definitely win that series in 6. But Memphis, I'm looking at that as the 4-5 matchup, and I just don't know if Denver's going to be able to win that many games when they have such a poor free throw shooting team and they lose that fast break in the playoffs.
It's almost a shame that we're going to have to watch one of those teams bow out of the playoffs because, as I was kind of saying before, you have the Heat up top, you have San Antonio, Oklahoma City right under that in the West, and then between the Clippers, Grizzlies, and Nuggets, just 3 teams that I think they could give those teams above them trouble. I know they haven't necessarily done it before, and that is a big factor. We heard Vecsey say how the Celtics, it's a uniform that knows how to win. And have the Clippers really done that before? No. They have some guys on the bench who have been there before, which I think will help them in the long run. And honestly, one of the biggest things, and I just saw ESPN, they do those 5-on-5s every so often, and one of the questions recently was, is Blake Griffin having a better year, I think, than Carmelo Anthony? And that's a guy that really hasn't been talked about, but he's really rounding into much more of a complete player. We all know what he can do above the rim and on the fast break, but defensively, he's improved a lot. He's worked on his low post game. So that's going to be a big factor for how far the Clippers can go, because as good as Chris Paul is, he needs that second banana.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the reason why that Clippers team, we're not sure, because on every night we don't even know who else is going to be able to help out Chris Paul. I think we were talking about this with several teams now that we're looking at the star being surrounded by the rest of the team, but you need, like with Miami, you need a few stars to step it up, and if Blake Griffin can get into that stardom potential, if he can make it up there, then the Clippers have a chance. They have a legitimate shot. But the problem is, once again, they have a very similar style to Denver, and that's why, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these playoffs for the Western Conference. But most likely, we're guessing that San Antonio and Oklahoma City, who are the only teams so far to clinch playoff spots, will be battling it out for the Western Conference team in the finals.
It's so great when you bring up the star power necessary in the playoffs, and not to take away from what Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce have done throughout their careers, but that's really my biggest reason why the Celtics need a Rondo and are going to miss him, and that's going to really show up in the playoffs when they don't have that top guy, that top-tier guy at the top of his game. Rondo can be the best point guard in the NBA. He's right up there with Chris Paul in just his all-around game. And that's the reason why I think the Celtics are missing him. But they've been playing very well. They have a game tomorrow night against the Miami Heat. And after that game, you don't want to miss the CLNS-Radio post-game show. That will be a good one. I'm writing the recap for that. So if you can't catch a show, can't catch a game, want to read up a little bit about it, I'll be typing away furiously throughout the game. Just have about a minute left in the show. Thank you so much to all our guests today. Bob Lick, former voice of the New Orleans Hornets. Great to talk to him about some Hornets, a little bit of Terps in there with Vasquez. I can't believe he said Vasquez would be a lottery pick. I mean, it's kind of easy to see when he's third in the NBA in assists.
Yeah.
But if you want to follow him, that's at Horton Homers. And if you also are interested, Peter Vecsey, again, he's a longtime columnist for the New York Post. Great NBA basketball mind. And also was on NBC when they carried the NBA. Follow him at Peter Vecsey1. But we're running out of time. It's been a great show. You can follow us at the Celtics-Beat. It's at Celtics_Beat. You can follow myself at Daniel_Baker9 on Twitter. You can follow Stats Adam, my co-host for the night, at Stats Adam. It's been a wonderful show. Thank you so much to all our listeners. Sorry we couldn't get the calls today. We'll take some more in the future. For everybody at CLNS Radio, my name is Daniel Baker. We are